Violetta Sinclair kept her dance card blank, on purpose, folded against her glove, so no one could see that not a single gentleman had written his name there. Across the ballroom, under the candles, the Duke of Grimsby looked past the ladies gathered around him and crossed the room as if that empty card had summoned him. By the time he reached the doors, Violetta had already slipped onto the stone balcony. The night air cooled her face. Inside her glove, a scrap of moonflower lace pressed hard against her palm. The music inside was a bright waltz. Out here, the wind smelled of damp earth and crushed leaves. Violetta kept her chin lifted, as if she had chosen solitude. 15 minutes earlier, Mrs. Theodosia Ormsby, the widow who paid for Violetta's lodgings in exchange for her companionship, had leaned close behind her fan. "Stand near the draperies, Violetta. Do not make a spectacle. We do not want anyone remembering the Haverford business tonight." Violetta had obeyed.
She always obeyed in public.
She had stood in the shadows, a ruined gentlewoman in a plain gown, while other young women laughed over crowded cards. Inside her glove, she had pressed the lace against her palm, the only beautiful thing she owned. And she had stepped out to breathe. She heard him before she saw him, boots on stone, then a hush beyond the doors. Silas, Duke of Grimsby, stood in the doorway in a dark evening coat. In that room, everyone trusted him. He was known as the Duke who fixed everything. Yet he had left the light and walked directly toward her. Violetta's spine went rigid. "Do not pity me," she thought. "Do not offer me a charity dance because your conscience has noticed my humiliation." Her thorns rose. She prepared a polite dismissal, sharp enough to send him away, but Silas stopped beside her and did not ask why she stood alone. His gaze fell to her left hand on the stone rail. He reached out. His fingers brushed the edge of her glove and drew the fabric back only an inch. The moonflower lace appeared in the candlelight. "It is a difficult pattern to hold the tension on," Silas said. "The moonflower. The threads snap if the hand is not entirely sure." Violetta stared at him. Her retort died. He was not looking at her as a tragedy. He was looking at her work. "Lace does not know how to feel shame for the woman wearing it, Your Grace," she said. Silas looked up. For a moment, the easy smile he wore for the ballroom faltered. "I did not ask about shame, Miss Sinclair. I asked about skill." He released her glove and stepped back, giving her space. "I have ledgers waiting tomorrow morning and a harvest assembly to prepare," he said. "I require someone who understands tension." Then he bowed and returned to the ballroom. Violetta remained on the balcony, her blank card hidden, and the moonflower lace burning against her palm. The next morning, Violetta sat stiffly in the library of Larkspur Hall, while Mrs. Ormsby watched beside her hands folded. "I cannot fathom why His Grace would request you," Theodosia had hissed on the stairs. "Do not mistake a gentleman's kindness for anything more. You know what happens when you do." Violetta had said nothing. She knew. Lawrence Haverford had taught her. When debt consumed the Sinclair estate, he broke their engagement with a gentle smile, speaking of prudence, duty, and her own good. By the time he finished, he looked merciful, and she looked discarded. She had sworn never to trust a soft voice again. The library doors opened. Silas entered with papers in one hand, no evening finery now, only a plain waistcoat and shirt sleeves rolled to the forearms. He looked like a man who had already answered problems before breakfast. "Mrs. Ormsby, Miss Sinclair, thank you for coming." He set the papers on the desk and looked directly at Violetta. "The harvest assembly is in 1 month. Larkspur Hall has long hosted local craft displays for parish subscriptions. This year, I wish to feature the Wicklow Lace Room. I am told it is struggling." Violetta's breath caught. The lace room. Her mother's legacy. A small cottage industry that kept village girls fed. Without new subscriptions, Lawrence Haverford's agents would buy the looms, dismiss the girls, and call it efficiency. "It is struggling," Violetta said. "I know nothing of lace," Silas said. "I know crop yields, roofs, and tenants. I need someone to organize the display, choose the patterns, and manage the girls. I will provide the room materials and subscriptions list. You will direct them." He paused. "As the designer, Miss Sinclair. Mrs. Ormsby, Your Grace, surely an estate manager cannot thread a needle," Silas said. "Will you do it?" He was not offering charity. He was offering work, and the survival of the only thing left that still carried her mother's hands. Violetta searched his face for pity. She found only expectation. "I will choose the patterns," she said. "I will handle the display. And the girls will keep half the price of the pieces sold." Mrs. Ormsby gave a small sound of horror. Silas smiled. This one reached his eyes. "Half," he said, "and their names will be written beside their work." Violetta looked down before he could see what that did to her. "Then, yes, Your Grace. I will do it." Over the next 2 weeks, Violetta moved through Larkspur Hall with new purpose. She measured rooms, placed frames, sorted bobbins, mended pattern cards, and taught village girls how to steady their hands. She also watched Silas settling tenant quarrels, carrying a lame hunting dog, softening disputes at dinner. Everyone took a piece of his time purse or patience. He gave it with that reassuring smile. "He is a saint, our Duke," a maid whispered as Violetta arranged bobbins. "Never a harsh word, never turns a soul away." Violetta pinned a length of thread. No one is that endlessly good, she thought. No one gives forever without expecting the bill to be paid later. So she kept her distance. When Silas entered a room, she curtsied and returned to work. She did not soften merely because he was kind. When Gentry inspected the preparations and cast disdainful glances at the poor Sinclair girl among the threads, Silas stepped in with perfect ease. "Have you seen the point d'Alençon stitch Miss Sinclair is teaching?" he asked a baroness. "Because she knows what most of us do not. The county may have the finest lace display in Ireland." He did not defend her as a victim. He named her as an authority. Violetta lowered her chin. She told herself he was like that with everyone. She was not special. She was another estate problem, like a leaking roof. But a leaking roof did not remember the shape of his hand against a glove. And Violetta, despite herself, did. By the 3rd week, the harvest assembly pressed against every hour. The lace room filled each morning with bobbins and murmured counting. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, Silas walked in. The girls fell quiet. Silas lifted both hands. "Do not stop for me. I am merely hiding from my steward, and if anyone asks, you have not seen me." The girls. He sat beside 2 younger girls struggling with a tangled thread. "Let me see." Violetta watched as he took the delicate needle between large fingers. The thread slipped. He tried again. The girls covered their mouths. Silas. "It appears I am better suited for chopping wood." Violetta stepped forward before she could stop herself. "Your tension is wrong, Your Grace." Silas looked up. "Show me." The corridor door stood open. A maid passed with linen. Nothing improper could be claimed. Yet the air changed as she stepped behind him. Her gloved hands hovered over his bare ones. "You are holding it as if it were a bridle," she said. "It is not a beast to be mastered. It requires a suggestion, not a command." She lowered her hands. Her fingertips brushed his knuckles. The contact lasted scarcely a second, but it seemed louder than the rain. She adjusted the needle.
Silas went still. The warmth vanished from his face. Not coldness, only sudden quiet, as though for once no one had asked him to shine.
A suggestion he repeated. Yes. Violetta stepped back, her heart beating out of order. Silas stayed a little longer, asking after families, promising coal to a cottage, admiring an uneven flower as if it were a masterpiece. But as he left, Violetta noticed the tight set of his shoulders. He asked everyone about their mothers, their fires, their fears. Not once had she heard anyone ask him how he was.
The answer came 2 nights later, as Violetta walked down the dark corridor toward the kitchen for water.
The house was asleep. The only light came from beneath Silas's study door. As she passed, it opened. Silas stood in the threshold. He had not seen her. Violetta froze. The smile he wore for the world was gone. His eyes were hollow. His shoulders sagged beneath every roof tenant letter and grateful hand that had reached for him. This was the truth beneath the warmth. Not a wall cracking. A fire burning down because everyone had warmed themselves by it. He looked up and saw her. At once he straightened. The smile returned by habit. Miss Sinclair, forgive me. I did not mean to startle you. Violetta looked at the smile he had put on for her and felt anger rise, not at him, but at everyone who had taught him that even exhaustion must be pleasant. She did not apologize. She walked into the study. The door remained open to the corridor. Ledgers covered the desk.
Letters and parish requests lay in neat stacks. A silver tea service sat cold beside a decanter of brandy. Violetta poured a measured amount into a glass and held it out.
"You do not have to smile at me, Your Grace," she said. "There is no one else here."
Silas looked at the glass, then at her. Slowly, the smile left him. He took the brandy and sat behind his desk, not like a lord receiving a guest, but like a tired man finally permitted to sit down. "My father left this estate in ruins," he said quietly. "When he died, everyone looked to me to mend it. I was 22. I learned quickly that people feel safe when the Duke is smiling. If I stop, they look frightened." Violetta did not tell him he was brave. Comfort could become another duty.
"So you hold the roof up with your bare hands," she said.
Silas looked up. The gratitude in his eyes was raw.
"Yes."
For a moment, neither spoke. Rain whispered against the windows. Then Violetta gathered 3 parish letters into a straighter pile and set them aside. "These can wait until morning." Silas gave a quiet laugh. "Can they?" "They must. Paper does not die of neglect overnight." He looked at her with something warmer than amusement. Violetta stepped back before tenderness made a fool of her.
"Good night, Your Grace."
"Good night, Miss Sinclair." She left him with the door open, the brandy untouched in his hand, and for the first time since arriving at Larkspur Hall, she did not think of kindness as a trap. The next afternoon, Silas came to the lace room before the girls came. He did not bring ledgers. He brought fresh candles, a note promising more coal, and 2 paper-wrapped cakes from the kitchen. "For the workers," he said. "There are only 2 cakes, Your Grace." His mouth curved. "Then I have made a grave administrative error." Violetta looked at the cakes, then at him. The old, sharp answer rose, but softened before it reached her mouth. "I shall enter it in the accounts." Silas's smile stayed small and private. "Please do." For one quiet minute they stood among the pale threads, with no one asking him to mend a roof, and no one asking her to apologize for existing. Then footsteps sounded in the corridor. and the spell folded away. Violetta was pulling on her gloves when she realized her moonflower lace was missing. She searched beneath the table and along the display frame. "Are you looking for this?" She turned. Silas held the white lace between his fingers, not like string, but like something entrusted. He offered it with both hands. Violetta reached for it. Their fingers brushed. She meant to make a sharp remark, but the study stopped her. "Your Grace," she said, her voice trembling before she steadied it. "Everyone comes to you to be caught. But who is allowed to catch you?" Silas stepped closer. He did not touch her. That restraint struck more deeply than boldness. "I had stopped looking for anyone to try," he said, "until I saw a woman on a balcony, hiding her pride in her glove, refusing to ask for a dance she deserved." His gaze held hers. "I did not come to you because you needed rescuing, Violetta. I came because you were the only person in that room who did not demand that I smile." Her breath caught. The thorns she had carried for years lowered by a single inch, enough to frighten her. "Lawrence Haverford was the kindest man I knew," she whispered. "He spoke softly while he ruined my name. He smiled while he walked away. Kindness terrifies me, Silas, because it has always arrived with a price." "I am not asking for payment," he said. "I am not asking for gratitude. And I am not asking you to lay down every weapon that kept you alive. Only to believe that I will not turn them against you." Violetta looked at him and realized she believed him. The heavy oak door swung wider. Mrs. Ormsby stood there, pale and breathless, a folded card and note in one hand. "Your Grace, Miss Sinclair," she swallowed. "Mr. Haverford has sent his card to the house. The note came through the innkeeper's boy, but it has already been shown at the magistrate's rooms. He asks admission to the Harvest Assembly." Her eyes moved helplessly to Violetta. "He writes that he wishes to repair in public their old misunderstanding with Miss Sinclair." The silence that followed was so absolute, Violetta thought she heard the thread of her own courage draw tight. By sunset, Lawrence's calling card had done more damage than a shouted accusation. It passed from the inn to the magistrate's rooms, then from one drawing room to another, softened by pity and sharpened by curiosity. Lawrence had brought a poisonous story. He had come to forgive Violetta, protect her from embarrassment, and help her withdraw before the county mistook the Duke's kindness for something improper. The meaning beneath every polished word was clear. Violetta was desperate, ruined, attached to the Duke through his charity, Lace Room. Lawrence Haverford had come to save everyone from scandal. Violetta stood in her small bedchamber, packing her trunk. She folded one chemise, then another. Her fingers would not hold still. If Lawrence made that performance tomorrow, subscriptions would vanish. The gentry would smile and step away. The merchants would keep their purses closed. The girls would learn what disgrace did to honest hands. Violetta pressed a shawl flat inside the trunk. "Leave now," she told herself. If she was gone before the assembly, Lawrence would have no target. Silas's name would remain untouched. The girls might still sell their work. She laid the dark blue gown in the trunk, as if burying it. The door opened without a knock. Silas stood there. He saw the trunk. He saw her rigid spine. "You are leaving," he said. "It is the only logical course." Violetta did not look at him. "If I stay, he will make a spectacle. He will turn your partnership into scandal and my work into shame. I will not let him close the lace room or use my name to tarnish yours." Silas stepped in. He did not close the door or command her to stop. "He is using your fear to chase you out the back door," Silas said. "If you run, he decides what your silence means."
My worth was decided the day he returned me to my father like damaged goods. Violetta whirled around. You do not understand, Your Grace. You are the sun. Mud does not stick to you. It sticks to me. If I stay, I must stand in that ballroom and let him pardon me for a sin I did not commit, just so the county will buy my girl's lace. Silas's jaw tightened. For one heartbeat, she saw the Duke in him, the man who could crush Lawrence with a word. He did not. I want to stand beside you tomorrow night, he said. I want every coward who believed his story to hear yours. But I will not trap you here to satisfy my honor. He glanced at the trunk. You can leave to protect me. Or you can stay and protect yourself. I will stand exactly where you permit me to stand. The words struck harder because they were not a plea. The choice is yours, Violetta. It has always been yours. He walked out, leaving the door open. Violetta stared after him. Her trunk waited on the bed, half-packed and safe. She looked at her hands. Those hands had made the moonflower pattern steadied frightened girls and held her pride in a glove when the whole ballroom had forgotten her. Slowly, Violetta reached into the trunk and drew out the dark blue gown. The Larkspur Hall ballroom was a sea of silk candlelight and hushed expectation. Along the east wall, Wicklow lace hung like frost over dark velvet, each piece marked with its maker's name. The local gentry had come, along with magistrates, clergy, merchants, and women who wished to be seen buying mercy without admitting they had enjoyed the scandal. Violetta stood near the displays in a simple dark blue dress. She wore no jewels. At her left wrist, beneath her glove, the moonflower lace rested against her skin. Her chin was high. Her stomach felt hollow. The crowd parted near the doors. Lawrence Haverford stepped through. He was impeccably dressed, handsome, and calm. He walked straight toward Violetta. Conversation died until the ballroom was silent. "Miss Sinclair," Lawrence said, his voice pitched for the crowd. "It moves my heart to see you here. When I heard of your difficult circumstances and how you relied on the Duke's charity, I knew I must come. I am prepared to offer you an allowance so you may remove yourself from this unfortunate public situation with dignity." There it was. A velvet-gloved humiliation. He offered help so everyone would believe she needed it, and forgiveness so everyone would assume she had sinned. A month ago, Violetta would have swallowed the insult and called it survival. Tonight, she reached into her left glove. She drew out the moonflower lace and held it up in the candlelight. "Mr. Haverford," Violetta said. Her voice was not loud, but it carried. "You are mistaken. I am not in need of an allowance, nor am I a recipient of charity." Lawrence's smile faltered. "You broke our engagement because my father lost his fortune," Violetta continued. "That is commerce, not morality. You chose comfort over constancy. That was your right. What you do not have is the right to dress cowardice as mercy and call my labor disgrace." A murmur moved through the room. Violetta raised the lace higher. "This room, these tables, this work, this is not the Duke of Grimsby's charity. It is a business. It is the skill of 30 women of Wicklow, managed and designed by me. Their names are written beside their work because their hands made it. Mine is written beside the moonflower because my hands made that." She stepped closer so Lawrence could not pretend she had shrunk. "I do not need your forgiveness, sir, because I committed no crime, and I do not need your rescue because I am not sinking." Lawrence's face darkened. He opened his mouth. Footsteps sounded on the wooden floor. Silas crossed the ballroom.
He did not come from the shadows this time. He walked under the chandeliers, ignored Lawrence, and stopped beside Violetta, not in front, not behind, but shoulder to shoulder. "Miss Sinclair speaks the absolute truth," Silas said. "Larkspur Hall is honored to host the Wicklow Lace enterprise. It is a partnership of equals." He looked at the crowd. "Anyone wishing to withdraw a subscription because a woman refused to be shamed may do so now. I prefer honest accounts." No one moved. Silas turned to Violetta. "I came to this room a month ago, looking for a place to hide," he said, softer now. "I found the only person here who saw me clearly. I do not stand beside Miss Sinclair out of pity. I stand beside her because it is the only place in this county I wish to be." Lawrence stood frozen. He had no weapon for a woman who refused to be shamed, and a duke who refused to turn respect into scandal. Still, he tried to save face. His mouth pulled into a thin, polished smile. "If you prefer commerce to protection, Miss Sinclair," he said, bowing with careful malice, "I shall not impose." Violetta did not answer. Neither did Silas. The silence received him more coldly than any insult. His smile failed. Without another word, he turned and walked out. The silence held. Then an old dowager duchess tapped her cane against the floor. "Well," she barked, "are we going to stand here gaping, or are we going to buy some of this splendid work?" The room broke into motion. Guests surged toward the tables. A merchant asked for 6 yards of edging. A baroness asked about a moonflower wedding veil. One village girl cried quietly when her first piece was sold. Violetta stood still. Silas kept his hands clasped behind his back, honoring the space between them. "You did not have to cross the room for me," she whispered. "I did not," Silas said, his smile tired and true. "You had already won. I merely wanted a good view of the victory." Violetta looked at him and smiled without armor. Only for a second, but he saw it. By the following spring, the Wicklow Lace Room had moved into a sunlit annex in the east wing of Larkspur Hall. The girls no longer lowered their voices for gentry. Their names appeared on every order sheet. Violetta stood at a mahogany table reviewing commissions from London. She wore a soft green day dress, moonflower lace blooming at her wrists. She no longer hid it in the dark. Silas entered, dusty from the magistrates, his cravat loose, his hair wind-tossed. He looked tired, but not emptied. That difference mattered. On her desk lay Silas's formal offer. Her acceptance, written below it in her own steady script, would be sent after the quarter's accounts were settled. Violetta had insisted on finishing her first season as manager before becoming anyone's duchess. Silas had not argued. He poured 2 cups of tea and set one beside her ledger. He did not ask about orders first. He did not ask whether the accounts balanced. "Are you tired today?" Silas asked quietly. Violetta looked up at the man who had learned to stop fixing the world long enough to let someone care for him. "A little," she admitted. "Good." Silas took her hand, his thumb brushing the lace at her wrist. "Then let me carry the ledger." Violetta arched one eyebrow. "The ledger is not a wounded tenant, Your Grace. It does not require rescue." "No," he said solemnly. "But I have been practicing suggestions rather than commands." Her laugh escaped before she could stop it. Silas's face changed when he heard it, not into his public smile, but into something quieter, something that belonged only in rooms where he did not have to perform. That evening, Larkspur Hall hosted a small private dinner for the estate staff, the lace girls, and local friends. As the tables cleared and musicians tuned near the hearth, Violetta stood with a small ivory dance card hanging from her wrist. It was blank. This time she had left it empty, where everyone could see. Silas approached through the warm light and stopped at a polite distance. His gaze dropped to the card, then rose to her face. "Your card is empty, Miss Sinclair." Violetta tilted her head. "It is your grace. May I ask why?" "Because," she said, steady and clear, "you have to ask me first." Silas's smile grew slowly. He offered his hand, palm up, waiting. "Violetta, will you do me the honor?" She looked at his hand, then at his eyes. Last season she had stood in a ballroom with an empty card and wished no one would notice. Now the room watched with open affection, but it did not matter. She did not need a room to see her. She needed one person to see her exactly as she was, and enough courage to let herself be seen. She placed her fingers in his hand. "Yes," she said, "you may have the first dance." Silas led her to the center of the floor. The moonflower lace at her wrist caught the candlelight. And when the music began, Violetta did not step out of the shadows. She had already left them behind.